There is something rather nice about lying down in the dark, knowing that you don't have to do anything at all for a while. The day is finished. Whatever needed to be done has either been done or it can wait until morning. Right now, the only thing that matters is that you are comfortable and warm and still. So let yourself settle. Let your weight sink down into the bed or the sofa or wherever you happen to be resting. Let your hands go soft. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. If your eyes are still open, you can let them close now. There is nothing on the screen that you need to see. There is nothing you need to follow along with. This is just a voice, talking quietly about a subject in a way that you can listen to or ignore as you please. If you fall asleep somewhere in the middle, that is exactly right. That is what this is for. And if you stay awake, you will simply learn a little about how the body is put together. Either way is fine. Either way, nothing is lost. Before we begin, there is one small thing to mention, and then we can drift into the subject without any fuss. This is a calm walk through a topic, made for rest and for gentle learning. It is not professional advice of any kind, medical or otherwise, so please don't lean on it for anything that matters in a practical sense. And please don't listen to this while you are driving or while you are doing anything else that needs your attention. Find somewhere safe, somewhere you can stop moving for a while, somewhere you can simply be still. That is all that needs to be said about that. Now, just one more small note, and then the talking can begin in earnest. If you would like to come back to any of this while you are awake and actually study it properly, there is a companion guide called the No Fluff Anatomy and Physiology Guide. It is available at the link in the description, and it covers the same ground in a form you can actually read. But you don't need it tonight. Tonight you can just listen. Tonight you can let the words wash over you, and keep only what your mind decides to keep on its own. So now we can begin, quietly, with a very simple idea. The body is not one single solid thing. It is more like a great many things, all arranged together, all fitting inside one another, layer after layer. And the first layer, the very smallest living piece of you, is something called a cell. A cell is tiny, so tiny that you cannot see one with your eyes alone. If you could hold a single cell on the tip of your finger, you would not feel it, you would not see it, and yet your whole body is made of them. Trillions upon trillions of cells, all stacked and packed and arranged in ways that allow you to breathe and move and think and sleep. Every part of you, from the skin on your hands to the deepest hidden places inside, is built from these tiny living units. It might help to think of a cell as a tiny room. Not a room in a house exactly, but a room in a very large building. Each room has walls, and inside the room there are small machines that do work. The walls keep the inside separate from the outside. The machines carry out all the small tasks that keep the room running. And the room itself is full of a watery fluid, a little like a very thin soup, in which all the small tasks happen. That watery inside is where the work of life is done. Now, the walls of a cell are not like the walls of a house. They are soft and flexible, more like the skin of a soap bubble. They can bend and shift. They can let certain things pass through and keep other things out. This is important because a cell needs to take in food and let out waste and talk to the cells around it. The wall of the cell, which is called the cell membrane, is the gatekeeper. It is the thing that decides what comes in and what goes out. And it does all of this quietly, without you ever having to think about it. Inside the cell, there is a small round structure that acts like the manager of the room. This is called the nucleus. You can think of the nucleus as the place where the instructions are kept. Just as a kitchen might have a drawer where the recipes are stored, the cell has a nucleus where the instructions for the whole body are stored. These instructions are written in a long, coiled molecule called DNA. DNA is simply a very long string of chemical letters, and the order of those letters spells out how to build and run a body. Every cell in your body carries a copy of this same set of instructions, but not every cell reads all of the instructions. A cell in your liver reads the part about how to be a liver cell. A cell in your skin reads the part about how to be a skin cell. The instructions are the same. The reading is different. That is one of the quiet wonders of how the body is organized. But a single cell, on its own, cannot do very much. It can stay alive, and it can divide to make more cells, but it cannot think, or pump blood, or move a limb. For that, cells need to work together. And when many cells of the same kind gather and work together, they form the next layer of organization. They form something called a tissue. A tissue is simply a group of similar cells, all doing the same kind of work, all sitting close together in a shared space. It helps to think of a tissue as a fabric. Just as a piece of cloth is made of many threads woven together, a tissue is made of many cells woven together, or stacked together, or linked together in some way. There are 4 main kinds of tissue in the body, and each one has its own particular job. The first kind is called epithelial tissue. That is a long name, but the idea is simple. Epithelial tissue is the covering tissue. It is the tissue that lines things. It covers the outside of the body, where it forms the outer layer of the skin. It also lines the inside of the mouth, the inside of the stomach, the inside of the lungs, and all the other hollow places and passageways. You can think of it as the wallpaper and the flooring of the body. It is the surface layer, the lining, the barrier between one space and another. Wherever there is an inside and an outside, there is usually epithelial tissue in between. The second kind is called connective tissue. This is the tissue that holds things together. It is the glue and the scaffolding and the packing material all at once. Bone is a kind of connective tissue. So is cartilage, the smooth, flexible stuff at the end of your nose and in your ears. So is fat, which stores energy and pads the body. And so is blood, which might seem surprising, but blood is indeed a connective tissue, because it connects all the parts of the body by carrying things from one place to another. Connective tissue is often quite spread out, with cells sitting in a large amount of material that they have made around themselves. That material can be hard, like bone, or soft, like the jelly inside an eye, or liquid, like blood. But in every case, the job is connection and support. The third kind is called muscle tissue. This is the tissue that can shorten itself. When muscle tissue shortens, it pulls on the things it is attached to, and that pulling is what makes movement. There is muscle in your arms and legs, of course, the kind you can choose to move. There is also muscle in the walls of your stomach and your intestines, and in the walls of your blood vessels, the kind that moves on its own, without you ever having to decide anything. And there is muscle in the heart, which beats steadily, year after year, from before you were born until the very end. All of this is muscle tissue, and its special ability is contraction, the ability to get shorter and then relax again. The fourth kind is called nervous tissue. This is the tissue of communication. It is made of cells called neurons, which are shaped a little like long, thin wires. They carry tiny electrical signals from one place to another, very quickly. Some of these signals go out from the brain and the spinal cord to tell muscles to move. Other signals come in from the eyes, the ears, the skin, and all the other senses, bringing news of the outside world. Nervous tissue is the body's message system, its network of wires. It is fast and it is precise, and it allows all the other tissues to coordinate their work. So those are the 4 basic kinds of tissue. Epithelial tissue covers and lines. Connective tissue supports and connects. Muscle tissue contracts and moves. Nervous tissue signals and communicates, and each of these tissues is made of many cells, all working together in the same direction. Now, when 2 or more kinds of tissue work together to do a particular job, they form the next layer up. They form something called an organ. An organ is a distinct structure with a recognizable shape, made of at least 2 kinds of tissue, and it does a specific piece of work for the body. The heart is an organ. The lungs are organs. The stomach, the liver, the kidneys, the brain, the skin, all of these are organs. Each one is built from a combination of tissues. The stomach, for example, has an inner lining of epithelial tissue, a layer of muscle tissue to churn the food, some connective tissue to hold the layers together, and nervous tissue to help control the churning. All these tissues, side by side, form the organ we call the stomach, and the stomach's job is to help break down food. That is what an organ is. It is a team of tissues organized into a shape with a function. Think of the body as a large and very complicated city. The cells are the individual people. The tissues are the families or the households, all doing the same kind of work. The organs are the buildings, the schools and houses and offices, each one with a clear purpose. And now we come to the next layer, the largest and most general one. When several organs work together to achieve a larger goal, they form a system. A system is a group of organs that cooperate. The digestive system, for instance, includes the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, the liver, the pancreas, and a few other parts. Each of these is an organ in its own right, with its own tissues and its own small jobs. But together, they all serve the larger purpose of taking in food, breaking it down into small pieces the body can use, absorbing those useful pieces, and getting rid of the rest. No single organ does the whole job alone. The stomach does not digest food by itself. The intestines do not absorb nutrients by themselves. They all contribute. That is what makes them a system. There are many systems in the body. The circulatory system moves blood around. The respiratory system brings in air and lets out carbon dioxide. The nervous system carries signals and coordinates actions. The skeletal system provides a frame. The muscular system moves that frame. The endocrine system sends chemical messages through the blood. The immune system defends against things that do not belong. The reproductive system allows for the making of new people. Each system is made of organs, and each organ is made of tissues, and each tissue is made of cells, and each cell is a tiny room with walls and a manager and a set of instructions. And so the body fits together in layers. From the smallest living unit, the cell, up through the tissues, the fabrics of the body, up through the organs, the distinct working structures, and up to the systems, the great cooperating teams. It is a nested arrangement, one thing inside another, like a set of boxes that fit within each other. The cell is inside the tissue is inside the organ is inside the system, and all the systems together make up the whole living organism, which is you, lying there in the dark, listening to these words, not needing to remember any of it. You don't need to remember the word epithelial or connective, or the fact that blood is a connective tissue. You can let all of that go. The point is simply to feel, for a little while, the shape of the idea. The body is not one thing, it is a community. It is a vast, quiet, organized community of tiny living rooms, arranged into fabrics, arranged into structures, arranged into great cooperative networks, all working together without your attention while you rest. And the beautiful thing is that it all happens whether you are aware of it or not. Right now, as you lie there, cells are taking in nutrients and letting out waste. Tissues are repairing themselves. Organs are doing their quiet work. Systems are coordinating, sending signals, adjusting, balancing. The whole layered structure is humming along, softly, steadily, and it asks nothing of you. It does not need you to watch it. It does not need you to understand it. It simply continues, layer upon layer, from the smallest room to the whole connected whole. Now, if we were to zoom in again, back down to the level of the cell, we could begin to look at how cells know what to do. How does a cell know to become part of a muscle, or part of a nerve, or part of a lining somewhere? How does a tissue know to stay a tissue, and how does an organ know its job? These are the questions that the rest of our time together will gently explore. But for now, it is enough to hold the simple picture. Cells make tissues. Tissues make organs. Organs make systems. Systems make a body. And the body, right now, is resting. So let yourself rest too. There is no need to hold on to any of these words. They are here, and then they are gone, and the body continues. The rooms inside you continue. The fabrics continue. The structures continue. The great teams continue. All of it, layer upon layer, doing what it knows how to do, while you drift somewhere just above the surface of sleep. The smallest living units of the body are cells, and every cell is wrapped in a thin, soft covering called the cell membrane. You can picture this covering as the wall of a tiny room, but it is not a hard, solid wall like the wall of a house. It is more like the surface of a soap bubble or the skin of a grape. It bends, it stretches, it lets some things pass through and holds other things back. And that careful letting in and keeping out is one of the most important things a cell does. The membrane is made mostly of fats, which is fitting, because fats are naturally good at forming thin, flexible barriers. Think of oil floating on water. The oil does not mix with the water. It forms its own separate layer. The membrane of a cell works in a similar way. It is a double layer of fatty molecules, arranged so that the inside of the membrane is oily and the outside and inside surfaces are more friendly to water. This creates a stable boundary between the watery world outside the cell and the watery world inside the cell. And because the middle of the membrane is oily, water and things that dissolve in water cannot easily cross it. That is why the cell needs little gates and channels to let certain things through. Scattered through the membrane are many kinds of proteins. Proteins are large worker molecules. They are the tools and machines of the cell. Some of these proteins form channels, like little tunnels through the membrane. Others form pumps, which use energy to push substances from one side to the other. Still others act as sensors, reaching out from the membrane to catch signals from the outside world. So the membrane is not just a passive barrier, it is an active, busy surface, constantly deciding what enters and what leaves, constantly reading the environment, constantly protecting the delicate machinery inside. If you were to step inside a cell, you would find that it is not empty. It is full of a watery gel called cytoplasm. This gel is mostly water, but it also contains salts, sugars, proteins, and many other small and large molecules. Floating in this gel are the cell's internal structures. These are called organelles, which simply means little organs. Just as the body has organs, each with its own job, the cell has tiny organs, each with its own job, and the whole thing is wrapped in the membrane, like a room full of small machines, all suspended in a soft jelly. One of the most important organelles is the nucleus. We touched on it briefly before, but it deserves a little more attention, because it is the place where the instructions are kept. The nucleus is round, and it sits near the middle of the cell, like a manager's office in the middle of a factory floor. It has its own covering called the nuclear envelope, which is also a double membrane. This covering has pores in it, little openings that allow messages to pass out from the nucleus into the rest of the cell. Inside the nucleus, the long threads of DNA are coiled and folded. DNA is the instruction manual. It is a very long molecule shaped like a twisted ladder or a spiral staircase. The steps of that staircase are made of 4 chemical building blocks, and the order of those steps is what forms the instructions. Every cell in your body has the same manual, the same long set of instructions. But different cells read different parts of it. A muscle cell reads the pages about how to be a muscle cell. A nerve cell reads the pages about how to be a nerve cell, and so on. The nucleus is the library, the safe place where the full manual is stored. Now, the cell needs energy to do its work. And the energy is produced mostly by small organelles called mitochondria. You can think of mitochondria as tiny power stations. They take in fuel, which comes from the food you eat, and they convert that fuel into a form of energy the cell can use. This usable energy is carried by a small molecule called ATP. ATP is like a tiny rechargeable battery. The mitochondria make the batteries, and then the rest of the cell uses them to power all its activities. Cells that need a lot of energy, like muscle cells, have many mitochondria. Cells that need less energy have fewer. But every living cell needs at least some of these little power stations, because without them, there is no energy, and without energy, there is no life. Another organelle is called the endoplasmic reticulum, which is a long name for a folded network of membranes that snakes through the cell. You can think of it as a workshop and a highway. Some parts of it are studded with ribosomes, which are tiny factories that build proteins. These ribosomes read the instructions that come from the DNA and stitch together amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, in the right order. The finished proteins then travel through the endoplasmic reticulum, folding into their proper shapes. Other parts of the endoplasmic reticulum help make fats and other molecules. So this network is both a manufacturing site and a transport system, moving newly made products from one part of the cell to another. There is also the Golgi apparatus, which sounds complicated, but is really just another processing and shipping center. It is a stack of flattened membrane sacs, a bit like a stack of pancakes. Proteins and other molecules arrive here from the endoplasmic reticulum. The Golgi apparatus sorts them, modifies them, and packages them into little membrane bubbles called vesicles. These vesicles then travel to wherever the products are needed. Some go to the membrane to be released outside the cell. Some go to other parts of the inside. The Golgi apparatus is like the post office of the cell, receiving packages, sorting them, and sending them on their way. Then there are the lysosomes. These are small, round organelles that act as the cell's recycling and waste disposal system. They are filled with digestive enzymes, which are special proteins that break things down. If the cell has a worn-out part, or if something harmful gets inside, the lysosomes can break it apart into small, harmless pieces. Those pieces can then be reused or thrown away. Lysosomes are the cleanup crew, quietly removing what is no longer needed and keeping the inside of the cell tidy. The cell also has a kind of internal skeleton. It is called the cytoskeleton, and it is made of thin fibers and tubes that crisscross the cell. This internal framework gives the cell its shape, just as the frame of a tent gives a tent its shape. But the cytoskeleton is not stiff and fixed. It can rearrange itself. It can grow longer or shorter in different places. This allows the cell to change shape, to move, to divide, and to transport things from one place to another. The fibers of the cytoskeleton are like roads inside the cell, and there are even tiny motor proteins that walk along these roads, carrying cargo. So the inside of a cell is not a chaotic soup. It is more like a busy, organized city, with roads and factories and power plants and waste services, all packed into a space far too small to see. And all of this is happening in every one of your trillions of cells, all the time. Right now, as you lie still, your cells are making ATP, building proteins, sorting packages, clearing waste, reading instructions. They are taking in oxygen and nutrients. They are letting out carbon dioxide and other waste. They are maintaining their membranes, adjusting their internal chemistry, responding to signals. Every single cell is a going concern, a living, working, self-maintaining unit, and none of it requires your attention. None of it requires you to decide anything. It just goes on, quietly and steadily, in the dark. Now, one of the most remarkable things about cells is that they can divide. A single cell can grow, copy its DNA, and then split into two cells. Each new cell gets a full copy of the instructions. Each new cell is a complete living room in its own right. This is how the body grows from a single fertilized egg cell into a whole organism made of trillions of cells. It is also how the body repairs itself. When you get a small cut on your skin, the cells around the cut divide and spread to close the wound. When you break a bone, cells in the bone divide and build new bone tissue. The ability to divide is one of the defining features of life, and it is one of the ways the body maintains itself over time. But division must be carefully controlled. If cells divide too much or too fast or in the wrong place, problems arise. The body has many systems to keep cell division in check, to make sure it happens only when it is needed, and only in the right amount. Most of the time, these systems work beautifully. The body grows in an organized way, wounds heal, and the tissues stay in balance. This balance is called homeostasis, and it is one of the central ideas in anatomy and physiology. Homeostasis means keeping the internal environment stable. The body works constantly to keep the temperature right, the amount of water right, the levels of salts and sugars and oxygen right, and to replace old cells with new ones at the proper rate. Every cell contributes to this balance, and every cell depends on it. So now we have a clearer picture of the smallest layer. The cell is a tiny room with a soft, flexible wall. It has a manager's office in the nucleus, where the instructions are kept. It has power stations in the mitochondria, factories in the ribosomes and endoplasmic reticulum, a post office in the Golgi apparatus, a cleanup crew in the lysosomes, and a movable frame in the cytoskeleton. It is a living, working unit, and it can make copies of itself. And when many similar cells sit together and work together, they form the next layer up. They form the tissues. Tissues are the fabrics of the body. And just as there are different kinds of fabric for different purposes, there are different kinds of tissue for different jobs. We mentioned the four main kinds before: epithelial tissue, the covering and lining tissue; connective tissue, the supporting and connecting tissue; muscle tissue, the contracting and moving tissue; and nervous tissue, the signaling and communicating tissue. In the next little while, we will move gently through each of these four kinds of tissue, one at a time, looking at how they are built and what they do. But you don't need to brace yourself for a lesson. There is no test. There is no need to take notes. You can simply let the words come, and let them go, and trust that the shape of the idea will settle on its own. The body fits together in layers, and the layers are not separate. They flow into one another. The cell membrane touches the tissue around it. The tissue touches the organ. The organ touches the system. And all of it is alive, all of it is working, all of it is resting now, along with you. If you think of a quiet city at night, with the lights low and the streets mostly empty, the body is like that. The work does not stop, but it slows. The city does not sleep, exactly, but it settles. The cells keep working. The tissues keep holding their shape. The organs keep doing their quiet tasks. The systems keep coordinating. And you, the inhabitant of this vast and gentle city, can finally stop directing anything. You can just lie there, inside the city, and let it run. The word anatomy means the study of the structure of the body, how it is built, where the parts are, how they connect. The word physiology means the study of how the body works, what the parts do, how they act and react. Together, anatomy and physiology are simply the study of the body as both a structure and a process. And the first step in that study is to see the layers: the cell, the tissue, the organ, the system, from the smallest room to the largest cooperating network. That is the frame on which everything else will hang, and that is enough for now. That is more than enough. You can let the words fade and let the body go on with its quiet work and drift a little further toward rest. When we talk about tissues, we are really talking about communities of cells. A single cell can do a great deal, but a group of cells, all of the same general type, all working side by side, can do much more. That group is a tissue, and the first kind of tissue we will settle into is epithelial tissue, the covering tissue, the lining tissue, the tissue that forms the boundaries of the body. Think of a house. A house has an outer surface, the roof and the outer walls, which face the weather. It also has inner surfaces, the walls of the rooms, the lining of the hallways, the surfaces of the floors. Epithelial tissue is like all of those surfaces. It covers the outside of the body, forming the outermost layer of the skin. It also lines the inside of the body, all the tubes and hollow spaces and cavities. Wherever the body meets a space, whether that space is the outside world or an inner passage, there is usually a sheet of epithelial tissue forming the boundary. This tissue is made of cells packed very closely together. There is very little space between them, and very little material in between. They sit side by side, shoulder to shoulder, forming a continuous sheet. This close packing is important because epithelial tissue is meant to be a barrier. It is meant to protect what is underneath, to control what passes through, and to keep different regions separate. If the cells were loosely arranged, with big gaps between them, the barrier would not work, so they are tight, neat, and orderly. Epithelial tissue sits on a thin supporting layer called the basement membrane. You can think of this as a kind of mat, or a thin carpet, on which the epithelial cells rest. It is not made of cells. It is made of proteins and other materials that the cells produce. It gives the sheet strength, anchors it to the tissues below, and acts as a filter, helping to control what passes through. The epithelial cells above, the basement membrane below, together they form a boundary that is both delicate and resilient. One of the most interesting things about epithelial tissue is that it has no blood vessels of its own. Most tissues in the body are fed by tiny blood vessels that run through them, delivering oxygen and nutrients. But epithelial tissue is usually avascular, which simply means without blood vessels. Instead, it gets its nourishment from the connective tissue underneath. Oxygen and nutrients seep up through the basement membrane from the deeper layers. Because of this, epithelial tissue can only be so thick. If it grew too thick, the cells furthest from the nourishing layer would not get enough food and oxygen. So epithelial sheets tend to be thin, often only a few cells deep. That thinness is part of what makes them good at their jobs, because things do not have to travel far to cross them, and crossing them is one of their main functions. Epithelial tissue is not just a passive wall. It is a selective barrier. It chooses, or at least allows, certain substances to pass through while holding others back. In the lungs, for example, oxygen passes through a very thin epithelial layer to reach the blood. In the intestines, digested nutrients pass through the epithelial lining to be absorbed. In the kidneys, waste products pass through epithelial layers on their way out of the body, and in the skin, the epithelial layer keeps water in and harmful things out. So the covering tissue is also a gateway. It lets the right things through and keeps the wrong things out, and it does this quietly and constantly. Epithelial tissue also secretes things. Many glands are made of epithelial tissue. A gland is simply a structure that produces and releases a substance. Sweat glands, oil glands, salivary glands, tear glands, and many others are all built from epithelial tissue. The cells in these glands are specialized for making particular products. Some glands release their products onto a surface, like sweat onto the skin or saliva into the mouth. Others release their products directly into the blood, like the hormones made by the thyroid gland. In both cases, the secreting cells are epithelial cells, arranged in little clusters or tubes or sacs, doing their quiet manufacturing work. There are different shapes of epithelial cells, and the shapes give clues to what the tissue does. Some are flat and thin, like paving stones. These are called squamous cells, and they form very thin sheets, good for places where things need to pass through easily, like the air sacs of the lungs. Some are cube-shaped, as tall as they are wide, called cuboidal cells. These are often found in glands and in the tubes of the kidneys, where they do a lot of secreting and absorbing. Some are tall and column-shaped, called columnar cells. These are often found in the lining of the stomach and intestines, where they absorb and secrete. So the shape of the cells tells you something about the job of the tissue. Flat cells let things pass. Cube-shaped and columnar cells do the work of making and absorbing. Epithelial tissue can also be arranged in different numbers of layers. Simple epithelium is a single layer of cells. It is thin and delicate, and it is found in places where absorption or diffusion is the main job. Stratified epithelium is several layers thick. It is tougher and more protective, and it is found in places that get a lot of wear and tear. The outer layer of the skin is stratified epithelium, many layers of cells stacked up, with the oldest cells on top and the youngest cells below. The cells on the top are constantly being worn away, and the cells below are constantly dividing to replace them. It is a living, renewing surface, always wearing down and always rebuilding. This ability to renew is another important feature of epithelial tissue. Because epithelial surfaces are exposed to the outside world or to the rough conditions inside body passageways, they get damaged easily. The cells are constantly being lost, scraped off, worn away. But epithelial tissue is very good at replacing itself. The deeper cells divide, and the new cells push upward to take the place of the old ones. In the skin, this happens constantly. In the lining of the gut, the cells are replaced every few days. The surface that lines your intestines today is not quite the same surface that lined them a week ago. The cells are new, the tissue is renewed, and the barrier remains intact. This renewal is so quiet that you never notice it. You do not feel your skin replacing itself. You do not feel the lining of your gut being made anew. It simply happens, day after day, a slow and steady rebuilding that keeps the boundaries of the body strong. It is one of the many ways the body maintains itself without asking for your attention. Epithelial tissue also has a sensory role. Some epithelial cells are specialized to detect things. In the nose, epithelial cells detect odors. In the mouth, epithelial cells detect tastes. In the skin, epithelial cells detect touch and temperature. So the covering tissue is not just a barrier and a gateway and a factory. It is also a surface for gathering information. It is the layer where the outside world first meets the inside world, and it is equipped to notice what is happening there. So we have this quiet, thin, busy tissue. It covers the body, it lines the body, it protects, absorbs, secretes, and senses. It is made of tightly packed cells resting on a thin mat. It has no blood vessels of its own, yet it lives and renews itself. It is the wallpaper and the flooring and the roof of the body, all at once, and it is everywhere. From the surface of your eyes to the lining of your lungs, from the walls of your blood vessels to the tubes of your kidneys, epithelial tissue forms the boundaries that make everything else possible. Now, if epithelial tissue is the covering, then the next kind of tissue is the filling. It is the supporting and connecting tissue, the tissue that holds things together. That is connective tissue, and it is quite different from epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is packed tight and orderly. Connective tissue is often spread out and loose. It is made of cells that sit in a large amount of material around them, material that the cells themselves have made. This material is called the extracellular matrix, which simply means the stuff between the cells. In connective tissue, the stuff between the cells is just as important as the cells themselves. In fact, it is often the main thing that gives the tissue its properties. There are many kinds of connective tissue. Some are soft and loose, like the tissue that lies just under the skin. Some are dense and strong, like tendons and ligaments. Some are hard, like bone. Some are liquid, like blood. But all of them share the same basic plan. Cells scattered within a matrix, and the matrix is made of two main parts. There are fibers, which give strength and stretchiness, and there is a ground substance, which is the fluid or gel that fills the spaces. The fibers and the ground substance together determine how the tissue feels and what it can do. The cells of connective tissue have different names depending on the type. Fibroblasts make the fibers and the ground substance in most ordinary connective tissue. Osteoblasts build bone. Chondroblasts build cartilage. Adipocytes store fat. Red blood cells carry oxygen. White blood cells defend the body. All of these are connective tissue cells, and they all live and work within the matrix. The fibers come in three main kinds. Collagen fibers are strong and tough, like little ropes. They resist pulling and stretching. They are the most common fibers in the body, and they are found in skin, tendons, ligaments, bone, and many other places. Elastic fibers are stretchy, as the name suggests. They can stretch and then spring back. They are found in places that need to stretch and recoil, like the lungs, the large arteries, and the skin. Reticular fibers are thin and branching. They form a delicate net that supports soft organs like the liver and the spleen. So the fibers of the matrix are like the threads in different kinds of cloth. Some cloth is strong and unyielding, like canvas. Some is stretchy, like the waistband of soft clothing. Some is delicate and net-like, like lace. The body uses all of these fabrics in different places. Loose connective tissue is the most common kind. It fills the spaces between organs, cushions them, and holds them loosely in place. It is soft and flexible, with a gel-like matrix and a loose arrangement of fibers. When you pinch the skin on the back of your hand, you are feeling, in part, loose connective tissue. It is the packing material of the body, the soft filling that allows things to move slightly without losing their place. Dense connective tissue is tougher and more fibrous. It has many collagen fibers packed closely together, which gives it great strength. Tendons, which attach muscle to bone, are dense connective tissue. Ligaments, which connect bone to bone, are dense connective tissue. These structures must withstand a great deal of force, and their dense, rope-like construction makes them very good at that. Cartilage is a firm but flexible connective tissue. Its matrix is a stiff gel, and its cells sit in small pockets within that gel. Cartilage is found at the ends of long bones, where it provides a smooth, slippery surface for joints. It is found in the nose and the ears. It is found between the bones of the spine. Cartilage is strong enough to bear weight, but flexible enough to bend a little. It has no blood vessels, so it heals very slowly. But it lasts a long time, doing its quiet work of cushioning and supporting. Bone is the hardest connective tissue. Its matrix is filled with mineral salts, mainly calcium and phosphate, which make it rigid and strong. But bone is not dead stone, it is living tissue, full of cells that constantly rebuild and reshape it. The mineral part gives it hardness. The collagen fibers give it a small amount of flexibility. Together they make a material that is both strong and slightly resilient. Bone supports the body, protects soft organs, stores minerals, and houses the marrow where blood cells are made. It is connective tissue at its most solid and structured. Blood is the most unusual connective tissue because its matrix is liquid. The ground substance is the plasma, the watery part of blood. The fibers are normally absent, but they can form when blood clots. The cells are the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, all floating in the plasma. Because blood flows, it connects all parts of the body, carrying oxygen, nutrients, waste, heat, and signals from one place to another. It is a liquid tissue, but it is a tissue nonetheless, with cells and matrix, doing the work of connection and transport. So connective tissue, in all its forms, is the great unifier. It binds the body together, it fills the gaps, it supports the organs, it stores energy, it carries materials, it provides the frame. Where epithelial tissue forms the boundaries, connective tissue forms the substance within the boundaries. It is the glue and the scaffold and the packing and the highway all at once. If the body were a city, epithelial tissue would be the outer walls and the inner linings, the surfaces of buildings and roads. Connective tissue would be the concrete and the steel and the wiring, the material that holds the city together and lets it function. Muscle tissue, which we will come to next, would be the machinery that moves things. And nervous tissue would be the communication lines, the telephone wires and the data cables that carry messages from one place to another. Each tissue has its own nature, each has its own work. And together, they build the organs and the systems, the great layered structure of the body. Right now, as you rest, your epithelial surfaces are quietly renewing themselves. Your connective tissues are quietly holding everything in place. Your cartilage is cushioning your joints. Your bones are supporting your weight. Your blood is flowing through your vessels, carrying what needs to be carried. All of these tissues are working together, without your help, without your awareness, in the slow and steady rhythm of the living body. So let yourself settle deeper. There is no need to hold these ideas tightly. The words can drift past, like the soft movement of air in a quiet room. The tissues know their jobs, the layers of the body are in place, and you can simply lie there, inside the hole, and let the night go on. Connective tissue is the body's quiet network of support, and it takes many forms. We have touched on the loose packing under the skin, the dense ropes of tendons and ligaments, the firm gel of cartilage, the hard mineral frame of bone, and the flowing liquid of blood. But each of these forms deserves a little more time, a little more attention, because together they do something remarkable. They hold the body in shape while still allowing it to move. They provide structure without stiffness, support without weight. They are the reason the soft parts of the body do not simply collapse into a puddle. Loose connective tissue is a good place to begin, because it is everywhere. It lies just beneath the skin, where it is sometimes called the superficial fascia, a name that simply means the band or wrapping just under the surface. It fills the spaces between muscles. It wraps around blood vessels and nerves, cushioning them and holding them gently in place. It lies beneath the lining of the gut and the lining of the lungs. If you were to look at it under a microscope, you would see a loose, open arrangement of fibers, with plenty of gel-like ground substance and a scattering of cells. It is soft. It is giving. It allows the skin to move over the muscles beneath it, and it allows the organs to shift a little as the body changes position. This looseness is important. If every part of the body were packed tightly together, movement would be difficult. Loose connective tissue creates the freedom to move while still keeping everything connected. Within loose connective tissue, there are cells that store fat. These cells are called adipocytes, and they gather together in clusters. When enough of them gather in one place, the tissue becomes what we call adipose tissue, or fat. Fat is not just a passive store of energy, though it is that. It also pads the body, protecting the organs and the bones from impact. It insulates the body, helping to keep warmth in, and it produces certain chemical signals that help regulate appetite and metabolism. So fat is a living, active tissue, not just an inert filling. It is a soft, protective, energy-storing layer of connective tissue. Dense connective tissue is the next form. It is built for strength. Here the collagen fibers are packed closely together, running in parallel bundles, like the fibers in a rope. The cells, the fibroblasts, lie squeezed between the fibers. There is very little ground substance, because the tissue is mostly fiber. This gives dense connective tissue great resistance to pulling forces. It can withstand tension without tearing. Tendons are the best example. A tendon is a cord of dense connective tissue that attaches a muscle to a bone. When a muscle contracts, it pulls on the tendon, and the tendon pulls on the bone. The tendon must be strong enough to transmit that force without stretching too much or snapping. It is a tough, white, glistening cord, and it is beautifully suited to its job. Ligaments are similar, but they connect bone to bone. They are slightly more elastic than tendons because they need to allow a little give while still holding the bones together. The dense connective tissue in tendons and ligaments is laid down in response to the forces placed on it. When those forces are regular and reasonable, the tissue stays strong. When those forces are too great or too sudden, the tissue can be damaged. But it also has the ability to repair itself, slowly, over time. Cartilage is dense connective tissue's smooth and flexible cousin. Its matrix is firm, like a stiff gel, and its fibers are embedded within that gel. The cells of cartilage, called chondrocytes, sit in small pockets called lacunae, which simply means little lakes. Each cell sits in its own small hollow, surrounded by the firm matrix it has made. Cartilage has no blood vessels, as we mentioned before. It gets its nourishment by diffusion from the surrounding tissues. Because of this, cartilage is slow to heal when damaged, but it is also smooth and durable, and it lasts for many years. There are three main kinds of cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is the most common. It is smooth and glassy, and it covers the ends of bones in joints, where it provides a low-friction surface. It also forms the rings around the windpipe and parts of the nose and ribs. Elastic cartilage contains many elastic fibers, which make it very flexible. It is found in the outer ear and in the small lid that covers the voice box when you swallow. Fibrocartilage is tough and dense, with many collagen fibers. It is found in the discs between the bones of the spine and in the knee joint, where it acts as a shock absorber. Each kind of cartilage is a balance of firmness and flexibility, shaped to its purpose. Bone is the most solid form of connective tissue. Its matrix is mineralized, which means it contains crystals of calcium phosphate that make it hard. But bone is not simply a lump of mineral. It is a living, dynamic tissue, constantly being broken down and rebuilt. The cells that build bone are called osteoblasts. They produce the matrix, the collagen fibers, and the mineral crystals. Once they become surrounded by their own matrix, they mature into osteocytes, which sit in small hollows and help maintain the tissue. The cells that break down bone are called osteoclasts. They dissolve small amounts of the mineral, releasing calcium into the blood. This constant process of building and breaking down allows bone to adapt to the forces placed on it. Bones become denser where they bear weight, and lighter where they do not. This is why exercise strengthens bones, and why long periods of inactivity can weaken them. Bone is also a storehouse for calcium, which the body needs for many things, including muscle contraction and nerve signaling. When the blood needs calcium, the osteoclasts release some from the bone. When there is extra calcium, the osteoblasts put some back. So bone is not just the frame of the body. It is also a reservoir, a living bank of minerals. Inside many bones, there is a soft, fatty tissue called bone marrow. Red bone marrow is where blood cells are made. Every red blood cell, every white blood cell, every platelet in your blood was produced in the red marrow of your bones. This is a remarkable thing. The hard, solid frame of the body is also the birthplace of the liquid tissue that flows through it. The bones support you, protect you, store minerals for you, and make the cells that carry oxygen and fight infection. They are connective tissue at its most complete. Blood is the liquid connective tissue, and it is worth a little time of its own. Blood is made of plasma and formed elements. Plasma is the straw-colored liquid, mostly water, that carries dissolved nutrients, gases, hormones, and waste products. The formed elements are the cells and cell fragments that float in the plasma. Red blood cells, called erythrocytes, are the most numerous. They carry oxygen from the lungs to the tissues, and they carry some carbon dioxide back. They are shaped like flattened discs, which gives them a large surface area for exchanging gases. They are filled with hemoglobin, a protein that binds oxygen. White blood cells, called leukocytes, are part of the body's defense system. There are several kinds, each with a different role, but together they protect the body from infection and injury. Platelets are small cell fragments that help the blood to clot when a vessel is damaged. When you get a small cut, the platelets gather at the site, stick together, and release chemicals that start the clotting process. The clot plugs the hole and stops the bleeding. This is connective tissue protecting the body, even in its liquid form. Blood flows through a vast network of tubes called blood vessels. The largest vessels are arteries, which carry blood away from the heart. The smallest are capillaries, which are so thin that red blood cells must pass through in single file. It is in the capillaries that the real exchange happens. Oxygen and nutrients leave the blood and enter the tissues. Carbon dioxide and waste leave the tissues and enter the blood. Then the blood flows into veins, which carry it back to the heart. This journey, from heart to lungs to heart to body and back again, is continuous. The heart pumps, the vessels conduct, the blood carries, and all the tissues of the body are bathed in the results. The connective tissues, then, are the great connectors. They fill the spaces, hold the organs, support the frame, store the energy, and carry the supplies. They are the scaffolding and the glue and the highway of the body, and they are alive, every one of them. The fibroblasts are busy making fibers. The osteoblasts are busy building bone. The chondrocytes are busy maintaining cartilage. The blood cells are busy carrying and defending. It is a quiet, steady industry, spread throughout the entire body, in every space and every structure. And now we come to the tissues that move. Muscle tissue is different in character. It is designed to contract, to shorten, to generate force. When muscle tissue contracts, it pulls on something, and that pulling is what makes movement possible. There are 3 kinds of muscle tissue in the body, and each has its own appearance and its own way of working. The first kind is skeletal muscle. This is the muscle attached to the bones, the muscle that moves the arms and legs and face and trunk. It is called skeletal because it attaches to the skeleton. It is also called voluntary muscle because you can choose to contract it. When you decide to lift a hand or take a step, you are using skeletal muscle. Under a microscope, skeletal muscle has stripes or striations running across it. These stripes come from the precise arrangement of the proteins inside the muscle cells. Skeletal muscle cells are long and cylindrical, and they have many nuclei. They are also under your conscious control, at least most of the time. The second kind is smooth muscle. Smooth muscle has no stripes under the microscope, which is why it is called smooth. It is found in the walls of hollow organs like the stomach, the intestines, the bladder, the blood vessels, and the airways. Smooth muscle contracts slowly and rhythmically, and it is not under your conscious control. You do not decide to squeeze your stomach or narrow your blood vessels. It happens on its own. Smooth muscle is the muscle of the inner body, quietly moving food along, adjusting the width of vessels, and controlling the flow of air. The third kind is cardiac muscle, found only in the heart. Cardiac muscle has stripes, like skeletal muscle, but it is involuntary, like smooth muscle. It contracts on its own, rhythmically, without you having to think about it. The cells of cardiac muscle are branched and connected to each other in a way that allows the electrical signal to spread quickly, so that the whole heart contracts in a coordinated wave. This is the muscle that beats, day and night, from before birth to the end of life. Muscle tissue, in all its forms, works by the same basic principle. The cells contain special proteins that can slide past one another. When the cell receives a signal, these proteins grab and pull, causing the cell to shorten. When the signal stops, the proteins let go, and the cell relaxes. This shortening and relaxing is what generates movement. In skeletal muscle, the shortening pulls on tendons, which pull on bones, which move the body. In smooth muscle, the shortening narrows a tube or squeezes a hollow organ. In cardiac muscle, the shortening squeezes blood out of the heart. Muscle tissue is also important for heat production. When muscles contract, they produce heat as a byproduct. This is why you shiver when you are cold. Shivering is just tiny, rapid contractions of skeletal muscle producing heat to warm the body. So muscle is not only the engine of movement, it is also a heater, helping to maintain the body's temperature. The fourth kind of tissue is nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is built for communication. It is made of 2 main cell types. The neurons are the signaling cells. They are long and thin, with branches at either end. They carry electrical signals, called nerve impulses, from one part of the body to another. The neuroglia, or glial cells, are the support cells. They protect the neurons, feed them, insulate them, and help them work properly. The brain and spinal cord are made mostly of nervous tissue, and so are the nerves that branch out through the body. A neuron has a cell body, where the nucleus sits. It has short branches called dendrites, which receive signals, and it has one long fiber called an axon, which carries signals away. The axon can be very long indeed. A single neuron can stretch from the lower back all the way down to the foot. Along the axon, the signal travels as a wave of electrical change, moving very quickly. At the end of the axon, the signal causes the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These chemicals cross a tiny gap to the next cell, carrying the message forward. This is how the nervous system communicates. Electrical signals along the cells, chemical signals between the cells. Fast, precise, and constant. Nervous tissue is what allows you to perceive the world and respond to it. It is what allows you to think and feel and remember. It is what coordinates all the other tissues and organs, sending instructions to muscles, adjusting the activity of glands, receiving information from every surface and every organ. It is the great communication network of the body, and it never stops. Even in sleep, the nervous tissue is active, consolidating memories, regulating breathing and heart rate, keeping the body in balance. So there are the 4 kinds of tissue, each with its own nature. Epithelial tissue covers and lines. Connective tissue supports and connects. Muscle tissue contracts and moves. Nervous tissue signals and coordinates. And these 4, in different combinations and different arrangements, build every organ in the body. The heart is a muscular pump lined with epithelial tissue, supported by connective tissue, and regulated by nervous tissue. The stomach is a smooth muscle bag lined with epithelium, wrapped in connective tissue, and controlled by nerves. The brain is mostly nervous tissue, supported by connective tissue, and lined by epithelial layers. Every organ is a blend of tissues, working together for a common purpose. And that brings us back to the layers. Cells make tissues. Tissues make organs. Organs make systems. Systems make the body. It is a simple idea, really, but it is also a deep one. The body is a community of communities, a structure of structures, a harmony of many small parts. And you can rest inside that harmony, knowing that the tissues are doing their work, the organs are doing their work, the systems are doing their work, and none of it needs your attention. You can simply be there, in the middle of it all, and let the night pass. The 4 basic tissues, epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous, come together in specific arrangements to form organs. An organ is a recognizable structure with a defined shape, made of at least 2 kinds of tissue, and it performs a particular job. The heart is an organ. The lungs are organs. The stomach, the liver, the kidneys, the brain, the skin, all of these are organs. Each one is a collaboration, a small community of tissues working together. Let us begin with the skin, because it is the largest organ of the body, and it is also one of the easiest to picture. The skin covers the entire outside of you, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. It is often thought of as just a wrapper, but it is far more than that. It is a living, complex organ with several layers, each with its own job. The outermost layer of the skin is called the epidermis. This is epithelial tissue, and it is stratified, meaning it is made of many layers of cells. The deepest layer of the epidermis contains cells that are constantly dividing. The new cells push upward, and as they move, they change. They fill with a tough protein called keratin, which makes them hard and waterproof. By the time they reach the surface, the cells are dead, but they are still useful. They form a dry, tough, protective covering that keeps water in and harmful things out. These dead cells are constantly flaking off, and they are constantly replaced from below. The skin you have now is not the skin you had a month ago. It is a fresh surface, quietly renewed. Beneath the epidermis is the dermis. This layer is mostly connective tissue, and it is much thicker than the epidermis. The dermis contains collagen and elastic fibers, which give the skin strength and stretchiness. It also contains blood vessels, which bring oxygen and nutrients and help control body temperature. When you are warm, the blood vessels in the dermis widen, letting more blood flow near the surface where the heat can escape. When you are cold, they narrow, keeping the blood deeper inside where the heat is conserved. The dermis also contains nerve endings, which let you feel touch, pressure, pain, and temperature. It contains sweat glands, which produce sweat to cool the body. It contains oil glands, which produce an oily substance that keeps the skin and hair soft. It contains hair follicles, the small pockets from which hairs grow. So the skin is not just a covering. It is a protective barrier, a temperature regulator, a sensory surface, a water balance system, and a factory for oils and sweat. It is a true organ, made of epithelial tissue on the outside and connective tissue on the inside, with muscles, nerves, and glands all working together. Beneath the skin, there are the organs of the body, each wrapped and protected and supplied by connective tissue. The body has two main cavities. The chest cavity, or thoracic cavity, contains the heart and the lungs. The abdominal cavity contains the stomach, the liver, the intestines, and other organs. A thin, smooth lining called the serous membrane lines these cavities and covers the organs within them. This membrane is made of a thin layer of epithelial tissue on a thin layer of connective tissue. It produces a small amount of slippery fluid, which lets the organs slide against each other without friction. Every time you breathe, your lungs expand and slide against the inside of your chest. Every time your heart beats, it rubs gently against the sac around it. The serous membranes make this movement smooth and silent. The heart is a good example of how tissues build an organ. The heart is mostly muscle tissue, specifically cardiac muscle. This muscle forms the thick walls of the heart. The inner surface of the heart is lined with a thin layer of epithelial tissue, which is smooth and helps the blood flow without sticking. The outer surface is covered with a layer of connective tissue, which anchors the heart and protects it. The heart also has its own supply of nervous tissue, which helps regulate the rhythm of the beat. So the heart is muscle, lined by epithelium, wrapped in connective tissue, and guided by nerves. All four tissue types, working together to pump blood. The blood moves through a network of vessels. The arteries carry blood away from the heart. They have thick, elastic walls made of smooth muscle and connective tissue. The smooth muscle allows the arteries to narrow and widen, controlling the flow of blood. The elastic fibers allow them to stretch when the heart pushes blood into them and then recoil, which helps keep the blood moving. The veins carry blood back to the heart. Their walls are thinner than artery walls, and they have valves, which are small flaps that keep the blood from flowing backward. The capillaries are the smallest vessels. Their walls are only 1 cell thick, a thin layer of epithelial tissue. This thinness is essential because it is through the capillary walls that oxygen and nutrients leave the blood and enter the tissues, and waste products leave the tissues and enter the blood. The entire circulatory system, heart and vessels and blood, is an organ system built from all four tissue types, working together to keep every cell supplied. The lungs are another organ system. Each lung is a soft, spongy organ made of a delicate arrangement of air sacs and blood vessels. The air sacs, called alveoli, are lined with a very thin epithelial tissue. Around each air sac, a network of capillaries runs. The barrier between the air inside the sac and the blood inside the capillary is so thin that oxygen can pass from the air into the blood, and carbon dioxide can pass from the blood into the air, simply by diffusion. The lungs are surrounded by a double layer of serous membrane, which lets them slide smoothly as they expand and contract. The muscles of breathing, especially the diaphragm, a large sheet of skeletal muscle at the base of the chest, pull the lungs open and let them relax. This is another example of tissues working together. Muscle tissue moves the air. Epithelial tissue lets the gases cross. Connective tissue holds the structure. Nervous tissue controls the rhythm. The digestive system is a long tube that runs from the mouth to the other end of the body, with several organs attached along the way. The tube itself is made of 4 main layers. The innermost layer is the mucosa, which is epithelial tissue, and it is the layer that touches the food. It secretes mucus and digestive juices, and it absorbs nutrients. Beneath the mucosa is the submucosa, a layer of connective tissue that contains blood vessels and nerves. Beneath that is the muscularis, a layer of smooth muscle that contracts to push the food along, and the outermost layer is the serosa, a thin covering of connective tissue and epithelium. So the digestive tube is a perfect example of organ structure. It is a layered tube, each layer made of a different tissue, and each layer doing its part. Along the digestive tube, there are accessory organs. The liver is a large, soft organ that makes bile, which helps digest fats. The pancreas makes digestive enzymes and also hormones that regulate blood sugar. The gallbladder stores the bile until it is needed. Each of these organs is made of epithelial tissue, which does the secreting, connective tissue, which provides the structure, muscle tissue, which helps move things along, and nervous tissue, which helps regulate the process. The digestive system is a long, slow, carefully coordinated journey, and it works without any conscious effort on your part. The kidneys are another example. They are two bean-shaped organs in the lower back, and they filter the blood. Each kidney is made of over 1 million tiny filtering units called nephrons. Each nephron is a small tube, lined with epithelial tissue, surrounded by a network of capillaries. Blood flows into the kidney, and as it passes through the nephrons, waste products and extra water are removed. The cleaned blood flows back out, and the waste, now called urine, travels down tubes to the bladder. The bladder is a muscular sac, lined with epithelial tissue, and it stores the urine until it is released. The kidneys are small organs, but they process an enormous amount of blood every day. They keep the body's water and salts in balance, and they remove the chemical waste that the cells produce. And they do all of this quietly, without any attention from you. The brain is the most complex organ of all. It is made mostly of nervous tissue, with billions of neurons and even more glial cells. The brain is soft and delicate, so it is protected by several layers. The skull, which is bone, forms the hard outer case. Beneath the skull, there are 3 layers of membranes called the meninges, which are connective tissue, and between the membranes, there is a clear fluid called cerebrospinal fluid, which cushions the brain and carries nutrients. The brain itself is organized into regions, each with different functions. Some regions process vision, some process hearing, some control movement, some are involved in memory and emotion. The brain is the great coordinator, receiving signals from all over the body and sending instructions back. It is the seat of thought and feeling and awareness, and it never truly rests, even in sleep. All of these organs, skin and heart and lungs and stomach and kidneys and brain, are built from the same 4 tissues. The materials are simple, but the arrangements are endlessly varied. And the arrangements matter, because the structure of an organ is what allows it to do its job. The thinness of the lungs' air sacs is what lets oxygen cross. The thickness of the heart's muscle is what lets it pump. The layered walls of the stomach are what let it churn and digest. The intricate circuits of the brain are what let it think. Form follows function. The shape of each organ is a clue to its purpose. And the organs do not work alone. They work together in systems. The heart works with the blood vessels. The lungs work with the heart and the blood. The stomach works with the intestines and the liver and the pancreas. The kidneys work with the blood and the bladder. The brain works with the nerves and the senses and the muscles. Each system is a network of organs, and each organ is a network of tissues, and each tissue is a network of cells. The whole body is a network of networks, nested and interwoven. This is a comforting thought, perhaps. It means that you are not a single fragile thing. You are a vast community, a living system made of living systems, with layer upon layer of organization. And this community is resilient. It repairs itself, it renews itself, it adapts, it maintains its internal balance, day after day, through every change in the outside world. When the temperature drops, the body adjusts. When you eat, the body adjusts. When you rest, the body adjusts. It is a self-regulating, self-maintaining, self-repairing whole. And right now, that whole is resting. The skin is renewing itself. The heart is beating, steady and slow. The lungs are rising and falling. The stomach and intestines are gently processing whatever was last eaten. The kidneys are filtering the blood. The brain is drifting through the quiet rhythms of early sleep. All of it, cell and tissue and organ and system, working together, holding the balance, keeping you here while you let go. So let go a little more. Let the muscles soften. Let the breath slow. There is no need to follow every detail. The details will still be here, in the body, doing their work, whether you remember them or not. The layers of organization will still be here, cell to tissue to organ to system. The quiet city of the body will still be here, with its factories and its waterways and its power lines and its gentle, ceaseless industry. You can rest inside it, safe and warm, while the night carries on. The body is organized in layers, but it is also organized around movement. Everything in the body is connected, and the connections are not always obvious. The bones give the body its frame. The muscles pull on the bones. The joints allow the bones to move. The nerves tell the muscles when to pull. The blood brings fuel to the muscles and carries away the waste. The lungs bring in oxygen. The heart pushes the blood. No part works alone. Every part is part of a larger pattern. The skeletal system is a good place to feel this pattern. The skeleton is made of bones, and there are just over 200 of them in an adult body. Some are long, like the bones in the arms and legs. Some are short, like the small bones in the wrist and ankle. Some are flat, like the bones of the skull and the ribs. Some are irregular, like the bones of the spine. But all of them share the same basic material. Bone is living connective tissue, mineralized and strong, yet still able to remodel itself throughout life. The skeleton is not a dry, dead frame. It is a living scaffold, constantly renewing itself, constantly adapting to the forces placed on it. The bones have several jobs. They support the body, giving it shape and holding it upright against the pull of gravity. They protect the soft organs. The skull protects the brain. The ribs protect the heart and lungs. The vertebrae protect the spinal cord. They store minerals, especially calcium and phosphorus, which the body needs for many things. And they house the red marrow, where blood cells are made. So the skeleton is a support, a shield, a storehouse, and a factory all at once. Where two bones meet, there is a joint. Joints come in different kinds, depending on how much movement they allow. Some joints are fixed, like the seams of the skull, where the bones are locked together and do not move. Some joints allow a little movement, like the joints between the vertebrae, where the bones can shift slightly against each other. Some joints allow a great deal of movement, like the shoulder, the hip, the elbow, and the knee. These freely movable joints are the ones that let the body walk, reach, bend, and turn. In a freely movable joint, the ends of the bones are covered with smooth cartilage, and the whole joint is enclosed in a tough capsule of connective tissue. Inside the capsule there is a slippery fluid called synovial fluid, which lubricates the joint and reduces friction. Ligaments, which are dense connective tissue, hold the bones together and keep the joint stable. So a joint is a beautifully designed structure, firm enough to stay together, smooth enough to move with ease. The muscles are the movers. Skeletal muscle attaches to bones by tendons, which are the tough cords of dense connective tissue. When a muscle contracts, it shortens, and this shortening pulls on the tendon, which pulls on the bone. Muscles usually work in pairs or groups. One muscle contracts to bend a joint, and another contracts to straighten it again. The muscle that bends the elbow, for example, is on the front of the upper arm. The muscle that straightens the elbow is on the back. When one shortens, the other lengthens. This is how movement happens. It is a smooth alternation of contraction and relaxation, directed by the nervous system, powered by the blood, and supported by the skeleton. The nervous system is the great director. It is made of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that branch out to every part of the body. The brain and spinal cord together are called the central nervous system. They are the control center. The nerves that branch out are called the peripheral nervous system. They are the cables that carry messages to and from the control center. Some nerves carry signals from the senses into the brain. Others carry instructions from the brain out to the muscles and glands. The signals are electrical, moving very fast. A message can travel from the tip of a finger to the brain in a tiny fraction of a second. This speed is what allows the body to respond quickly to the world around it. But the nervous system also works in a slower, quieter way. It has a branch called the autonomic nervous system, which controls the things you do not have to think about. The autonomic nervous system keeps the heart beating, the lungs breathing, the stomach digesting, the blood vessels adjusting. It works all the time, even in sleep. It has two main settings. The sympathetic setting prepares the body for action. It speeds the heart, opens the airways, and sends more blood to the muscles. The parasympathetic setting does the opposite. It slows the heart, calms the breath, and directs blood to the digestive organs. These two settings balance each other. Most of the time, especially at rest, the parasympathetic setting is the stronger one. It is the setting of calm, of digestion, of slow repair. Right now, as you lie there, the parasympathetic nervous system is quietly doing its work. Your heart is slowing. Your breath is deepening. Your body is turning away from the alertness of the day and toward the stillness of the night. The circulatory system carries the blood through all of this. The heart is the pump, a muscle about the size of a fist, sitting in the chest behind the breastbone. It has 4 chambers. 2 upper chambers, called atria, receive the blood. 2 lower chambers, called ventricles, pump the blood out. The right side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs, where it picks up oxygen and lets go of carbon dioxide. The left side of the heart pumps the oxygen-rich blood out to the rest of the body. The blood travels through arteries, then through tiny capillaries, then back through veins. In the capillaries, the exchange happens. Oxygen and nutrients leave the blood. Carbon dioxide and waste enter the blood. Then the blood returns to the heart, and the cycle begins again. This cycle happens about once every minute for each drop of blood, and it happens continuously, day and night, without a pause. The respiratory system works with the circulatory system. The lungs take in air, which contains oxygen. The oxygen crosses the thin walls of the air sacs into the blood. At the same time, carbon dioxide crosses from the blood into the air, and the air is breathed out. The lungs are not muscles themselves. They are moved by the diaphragm, a large sheet of muscle below them, and by the muscles between the ribs. When the diaphragm contracts and flattens, the space inside the chest gets bigger and air flows in. When it relaxes, the space gets smaller and air flows out. This happens about 12 to 20 times a minute in a resting adult, slower when you are calm, deeper when you sleep. The digestive system takes in food and breaks it down. The food enters the mouth, where it is chewed and mixed with saliva. It travels down the esophagus to the stomach, where it is churned and mixed with acid and enzymes. It moves into the small intestine, where most of the nutrients are absorbed. Then it moves into the large intestine, where water is absorbed and the waste is formed. The liver and pancreas add their secretions along the way, helping to break down fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. The whole process takes many hours, and it works at its own pace. The smooth muscle of the digestive tract contracts in slow waves, moving the food along. The nervous system regulates the process. The blood carries the absorbed nutrients to every cell. The digestive system is another example of the whole body working together. The urinary system is the body's filter. The kidneys filter the blood, removing waste products and extra water. The waste becomes urine, which flows down the ureters to the bladder, and then out of the body. The kidneys also help regulate blood pressure, electrolyte balance, and the production of red blood cells. They are small organs, but they do an enormous amount of work. Every day, they filter all of the blood many times over. They are the body's quiet custodians, keeping the internal environment clean and stable. The immune system is the body's defense. It is made of a wide network of cells and tissues, including white blood cells, the lymph nodes, the spleen, and the thymus. It patrols the body, looking for things that do not belong. It recognizes and removes damaged cells. It fights off infections. It remembers the things it has seen before, so that the next time, the response is faster. Most of the time, the immune system works silently, without any sign of its activity. It is a quiet, watchful presence, always on duty, always protecting. The endocrine system is the body's chemical message system. It is made of glands that release hormones into the blood. Hormones are chemical messengers that travel through the blood and affect distant organs. The thyroid gland releases hormones that control metabolism. The pancreas releases insulin, which controls blood sugar. The adrenal glands release hormones that respond to stress. The pituitary gland, at the base of the brain, releases hormones that control many other glands. The endocrine system works more slowly than the nervous system, but its effects last longer. It helps regulate growth, metabolism, sleep, mood, and reproduction. It is the slow, steady voice in the body, adjusting the internal environment over minutes and hours and days. All of these systems are connected. The nervous system sends fast signals. The endocrine system sends slow signals. The circulatory system carries everything. The respiratory system brings in oxygen. The digestive system brings in fuel. The urinary system removes waste. The immune system defends. The skeletal system supports. The muscular system moves. The skin covers. The body is a single, integrated whole, made of many systems, each made of organs, each made of tissues, each made of cells. This integration is the essence of physiology. Anatomy is the structure. Physiology is the function. But the two are inseparable. The structure of the heart is what makes its function possible. The function of the heart is what makes the body's structure live. Every part is shaped by its work, and every part's work shapes the whole. And the whole, right now, is at rest. The systems are not competing, they are cooperating. The heart is beating slowly. The lungs are breathing softly. The digestive tract is working quietly. The kidneys are filtering steadily. The immune system is watching. The endocrine system is balancing. The nervous system is settling into the slow rhythms of the parasympathetic state. The muscles are heavy. The skin is warm, the body is at peace. You can let yourself be at peace too. There is no need to make anything happen. The body already knows how to rest. It has been practicing for your whole life. It knows the slow rhythm of breathing. It knows the soft heaviness of muscles. It knows the quiet drift of thoughts as they lose their edge and fade. You can trust that. You can let the body do what it knows how to do, and you can simply be there, inside it, while the night goes on. The layers of the body are still now. The cells are still working, but their work is quiet. The tissues are still holding, but their hold is gentle. The organs are still functioning, but their function is slow and steady. The systems are still connected, but their connections are calm. It is all one thing, one living whole, breathing and beating and filtering and protecting and resting. And you are that whole. You are the community of cells. You are the fabric of tissues. You are the collaboration of organs. You are the integration of systems. And right now, you are asleep, or nearly so, and the body is carrying you through the night. The circulatory system is worth returning to, because it touches every other system in the body. It is the transport network, the delivery service, the river that runs through the whole landscape. The heart, the vessels, and the blood work together to bring oxygen and nutrients to every cell, and to carry away the waste that every cell produces. Without this constant flow, the tissues would suffocate and starve in minutes. But the flow does not stop. It continues from before birth until the very end, steady and patient. The heart is the engine of this system. It is a hollow, muscular organ about the size of a closed fist, and it sits in the chest, just behind the breastbone, tilted slightly to the left. It is divided into two halves, a right half and a left half, and each half has two chambers. The upper chamber is called the atrium, and the lower chamber is called the ventricle. The right atrium receives blood that has already traveled through the body and given up most of its oxygen. This blood is dark and tired, and it needs to go to the lungs to be refreshed. The right ventricle pumps it there. The left atrium receives the refreshed blood from the lungs, bright and full of oxygen, and the left ventricle pumps it out to the whole body. So the heart is really two pumps side by side. One pump sends blood to the lungs. The other pump sends blood to everything else. and they work together in perfect rhythm, beat after beat. The walls of the heart are made mostly of cardiac muscle. This muscle is strong and tireless. It contracts on its own, without any instruction from your conscious mind. The signal to beat comes from a small patch of specialized muscle in the right atrium, called the pacemaker. The pacemaker sends out a tiny electrical pulse, and the pulse spreads through the heart, telling the muscle to contract. This happens about 60 to 80 times a minute in a resting adult, slower in sleep, faster during activity. Each beat is a wave of pressure that pushes the blood along. The blood leaves the heart through large vessels called arteries. The largest artery is the aorta, which rises from the left ventricle and then curves downward, carrying oxygen-rich blood to the whole body. The arteries branch and branch, becoming smaller and smaller, until they become tiny arterioles, and then the smallest vessels of all, the capillaries. The capillaries are so thin that their walls are only a single layer of epithelial cells. This thinness is essential because it allows things to pass through. In the capillary beds, which are the networks of tiny vessels that spread through every tissue, the real exchange happens. Oxygen leaves the blood and enters the cells. Nutrients leave the blood and enter the cells. Carbon dioxide and other waste leave the cells and enter the blood. The blood then begins its return journey, flowing from capillaries into small venules, then into larger veins, and finally back to the heart. The veins are not as thick or as muscular as the arteries, because the pressure in them is much lower, but they have an important feature that arteries lack. Many veins, especially in the arms and legs, have valves. These valves are small flaps, like little one-way doors, that allow blood to flow toward the heart, but not backward. This is important because the blood in the veins is often flowing uphill against gravity. The valves, along with the squeezing of the muscles around the veins, help push the blood along. When you walk, the muscles in your legs squeeze the veins, and the blood is moved upward. The valves prevent it from sliding back down. It is a quiet, mechanical system, working with every movement you make. The blood itself is a remarkable substance. It is a liquid tissue made of plasma and formed elements. Plasma is mostly water, but it also contains proteins, salts, nutrients, hormones, and waste products. The formed elements are the red blood cells, the white blood cells, and the platelets. Red blood cells are the most numerous, and they are the ones that carry oxygen. They are shaped like discs, with a slight indentation in the middle, like a donut that is not quite filled in. This shape gives them a large surface area for their size, which helps them pick up and release oxygen quickly. They are filled with hemoglobin, a protein that binds oxygen. In the lungs, where oxygen is plentiful, hemoglobin picks up oxygen. In the tissues, where oxygen is scarce, hemoglobin releases it. This is a simple and elegant system. The red blood cells are born in the bone marrow, live for about 4 months, and then are broken down and recycled. New ones are made all the time, millions every second, so the supply never runs short. White blood cells are the defenders. They are fewer in number, but they are varied and powerful. Some of them patrol the blood and the tissues, looking for things that do not belong. Some of them engulf and destroy bacteria and other invaders. Some of them produce antibodies, which are proteins that mark invaders for destruction. Some of them remember previous infections, so that the response is faster the next time. The white blood cells are part of the immune system, and they use the circulatory system as their highway. They travel through the blood, but they can also leave the blood and move through the tissues, seeking out trouble. Platelets are the smallest of the formed elements. They are not whole cells, but small fragments of larger cells. Their job is to help the blood clot. When a blood vessel is damaged, the platelets gather at the site, stick together, and release chemicals that start a cascade of reactions. The result is a clot, a plug of fibers and cells that seals the hole and stops the bleeding. This happens quickly and automatically, usually without you even noticing. The body is always repairing itself, in small ways and large. The circulatory system works closely with the respiratory system. The two systems meet in the lungs. The blood comes to the lungs dark and full of carbon dioxide. It flows through the capillaries that wrap around the tiny air sacs. The carbon dioxide leaves the blood and enters the air. The oxygen leaves the air and enters the blood. The blood goes back to the heart, bright and refreshed, ready to be pumped to the body. This exchange happens with every breath, about 12 to 20 times a minute, all day and all night. The lungs are built for this. They are soft and spongy, with millions of tiny air sacs, each surrounded by a net of capillaries. The total surface area of all these air sacs is enormous, large enough to cover a tennis court, all folded up inside the chest. This large surface is what makes the exchange so efficient. The respiratory system begins at the nose and mouth. The air passes through the nasal cavity, where it is warmed, moistened, and filtered. It travels down the throat, through the larynx, which is the voice box, and into the trachea, which is the windpipe. The trachea divides into 2 bronchi, one for each lung, and the bronchi divide again and again, becoming smaller and smaller, until they end in the tiny air sacs. The walls of the airways contain smooth muscle, which can narrow or widen them. This is why the airways can tighten in response to certain triggers, and why they can relax with warmth and calm. The diaphragm and the muscles between the ribs do the work of breathing. When they contract, the chest expands, and air is drawn in. When they relax, the chest recoils, and air is pushed out. It is a quiet, rhythmic process, and it can become slower and deeper with rest. The digestive system also works closely with the circulatory system. The food you eat is broken down in the digestive tract, but the nutrients do not become useful until they enter the blood. This happens in the small intestine. The inner surface of the small intestine is covered with tiny finger-like projections called villi. Each villus is lined with epithelial cells, and inside each villus is a network of capillaries. The nutrients pass through the epithelial cells and into the blood. From there, they travel to the liver, where they are processed and sorted. Some are stored, some are sent out to the body, some are converted into other forms. The liver is the body's chemical factory, and it works closely with the blood to keep the levels of nutrients, hormones, and other substances in balance. The circulatory system also helps regulate temperature. When the body is warm, the blood vessels near the skin widen, letting more blood flow to the surface, where the heat can escape. When the body is cold, the vessels narrow, keeping the blood deeper inside, where the heat is conserved. This is why your hands and feet get cold in winter, and why your face flushes when you are warm. The blood is the body's heating and cooling system, carrying heat from the core to the surface and back again. And the circulatory system carries hormones, the chemical messengers of the endocrine system. The glands release hormones into the blood, and the blood carries them to their target organs. This is how the endocrine system coordinates slow, long-lasting changes in the body. The thyroid hormone, for example, travels from the thyroid gland in the neck to every cell in the body, telling them how fast to work. Insulin travels from the pancreas to the liver, the muscles, and the fat tissue, telling them to take up sugar from the blood. The hormones of stress travel from the adrenal glands to the heart, the lungs, the muscles, and the brain, preparing the body for action. All of this happens through the blood, quietly and constantly. So the circulatory system is the great integrator. It connects the lungs to the tissues. It connects the digestive tract to the cells. It connects the endocrine glands to their targets. It connects the immune cells to their battlegrounds. It carries heat, nutrients, oxygen, hormones, and immune factors. It is the river that runs through every part of the body, touching every tissue, serving every cell. And right now, that river is flowing slowly and calmly. The heart is beating steadily. The blood is moving through the vessels. The capillaries are exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. The tissues are being fed. The waste is being carried away. The whole system is working quietly, in the dark, while you rest. You can feel it if you are very still. You can feel the soft throb of the heart. You can feel the gentle rise and fall of the breath. You can feel the warmth of the blood in the skin. These are the rhythms of the body, the slow, steady rhythms of the circulatory and respiratory systems, working together to keep you alive. So let those rhythms carry you. Let the heartbeat slow. Let the breath deepen. Let the blood flow. There is no need to think about any of this. The body already knows how to do it. It has been doing it since the very beginning, and it will keep doing it through the night. You can rest in the flow, in the warmth, in the quiet, and let the systems work. The cells are fed, the tissues are cared for, the organs are served, the whole body is held in the gentle current of the blood, and that current is carrying you, softly, towards sleep. The nervous system is the fastest of the body's communication systems. It carries messages in the form of tiny electrical impulses, and those impulses travel along pathways that reach into every corner of the body. The brain and the spinal cord form the central network, and from there, nerves branch outward, like roads spreading from a city into the countryside. Everything you feel, everything you think, everything you do is made possible by this system. The basic unit of the nervous system is the neuron, the nerve cell. A neuron is a long, thin cell, built to carry signals. It has a cell body, which holds the nucleus and the usual machinery of the cell. It has branching fibers called dendrites, which receive signals from other cells. And it has one long fiber called the axon, which carries signals away. The axon can be very short, or it can run the entire length of a limb. Along the axon, the signal travels as a wave of electrical change, moving at great speed. Some axons are wrapped in a fatty insulating layer called myelin, which makes the signal travel even faster. Myelin is like the plastic coating around a wire. It keeps the signal clean and quick, and it is made by glial cells, the support cells of the nervous system. When the electrical signal reaches the end of the axon, it arrives at a small gap called a synapse. The signal cannot jump across the gap. Instead, it triggers the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These chemicals float across the tiny gap and bind to receptors on the next cell. This binding starts a new signal in the next cell, and the message continues. So the nervous system uses both electricity and chemistry. Electricity along the wire, chemistry across the gap. Fast and precise, over and over again, millions of times a second. The brain is the largest collection of neurons in the body. It weighs about 3 pounds, and it is soft and wrinkled, with a texture something like firm jelly. It sits inside the skull, cushioned by fluid and wrapped in protective membranes. The brain is divided into regions, and each region has its own work. The largest part is the cerebrum, which is the folded outer layer. The cerebrum is where most of the conscious thinking happens. It processes what you see and hear, it plans your movements, it holds your memories, it shapes your words. It is divided into 2 halves, called hemispheres, and each half controls the opposite side of the body. The left hemisphere controls the right side, and the right hemisphere controls the left side. The 2 halves are connected by a thick band of fibers so they can share information. Beneath the cerebrum, at the back of the brain, is the cerebellum. The cerebellum is smaller, but it is densely packed with neurons. Its job is balance and coordination. It takes the plan for a movement and smooths it out, adjusting the timing and the force, so that the movement is fluid and accurate. When you walk without thinking about it, when you reach for a glass without knocking it over, the cerebellum is at work. Deep inside the brain is the brainstem. The brainstem is the oldest part of the brain, in evolutionary terms, and it controls the basic functions of life. It regulates breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and the cycle of sleep and wakefulness. It is the part of the brain that keeps you alive without your awareness. It is also the place where many of the cranial nerves originate, the nerves that serve the face, the eyes, the ears, the tongue, and the throat. The brainstem is the bridge between the brain and the rest of the body. The spinal cord runs from the brainstem down the back, inside a tunnel formed by the vertebrae. It is a long, thick cable of nervous tissue and it carries messages between the brain and the body. It also handles some things on its own, through reflexes. A reflex is a fast, automatic response that does not need the brain. If you touch something sharp, the signal travels to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord immediately sends a signal back to the muscles, telling them to pull away. The brain finds out a moment later. This is why you pull your hand back before you even feel the pain. The spinal cord is the body's quick response center, handling the urgent things while the brain takes its time. The peripheral nerves branch out from the spinal cord and the brain. Some of them are sensory nerves, carrying information from the senses into the central nervous system. Some of them are motor nerves, carrying instructions from the central nervous system out to the muscles. Some of them are mixed, carrying both kinds of signals. These nerves run through the body in bundles, like cables, and they reach every tissue, every organ, every surface. The skin is rich with sensory nerve endings. The muscles are rich with motor nerve endings. The organs are served by the autonomic nerves, which work without your attention. The autonomic nervous system is the part that controls the inner workings of the body. It has two branches, as we have mentioned. The sympathetic branch prepares the body for action. It speeds the heart, opens the airways, sends blood to the muscles, and releases stored energy. The parasympathetic branch prepares the body for rest. It slows the heart, deepens the breath, sends blood to the digestive organs, and lets the body repair itself. These two branches work in balance. During the day, the sympathetic branch is more active, keeping you alert and ready. At night, the parasympathetic branch takes over, slowing things down, letting the body settle. Right now, as you lie in the dark, the parasympathetic branch is the stronger one. It is the branch of calm, of rest, of sleep. The nervous system also includes the senses. The senses are the body's windows to the outside world. The eyes detect light. The ears detect sound. The nose detects odors. The tongue detects tastes. The skin detects touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. Each sense organ is built of specialized cells that respond to a particular kind of stimulus. The sensory cells send signals through sensory nerves to the brain, and the brain interprets those signals, creating the experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling. This happens so quickly and so smoothly that you do not notice the process. You simply see the room around you, hear the quiet of the night, feel the softness of the bed. The senses are the bridge between the inner world and the outer world, and they too are quieting now, settling into rest. The nervous system is also the seat of memory and learning. When you learn something, the connections between neurons change. Some connections become stronger, some become weaker. New connections form, old ones fade. This is how the brain stores information. It is a physical process, a reshaping of the network, and it happens even in sleep. While you rest, the brain replays the events of the day, sorting through them, keeping some, letting others go. This is one reason sleep is so important. It is not just rest for the body, it is also a time for the brain to organize itself, to consolidate memories, to clear away the waste products of the day's thinking. The brain is never truly inactive. Even in the deepest sleep, the neurons are firing, the network is adjusting, the quiet work of mind is continuing. So the nervous system is the great coordinator. It receives information from every part of the body. It sends instructions to every part of the body. It regulates the inner environment. It interprets the outer world. It holds the memories of the past and the plans for the future. And it does all of this with tiny electrical impulses and chemical messengers, moving through a network of cells that is almost too complex to imagine. But you do not need to imagine it. You can simply feel it. In the way the body is settling now, the brain is slowing. The signals are softening. The senses are dimming. The muscles are heavy. The breath is easy. The heart is calm. The whole nervous system is shifting into its quiet mode, the mode of sleep, the mode of restoration. Let yourself rest in that shift. Let the thoughts come and go. Let them drift past like slow clouds, without holding on to any of them. The brain is doing its quiet work. The body is doing its quiet work. The breath is doing its quiet work. You do not need to manage any of it. You can simply let it happen. The nervous system is the last of the great systems we have visited, but it is also the one that makes all the others feel like a single, unified whole. Through the nervous system, the heart and the lungs and the stomach and the skin are all connected. Through the nervous system, the body knows itself. Through the nervous system, you are able to lie here, in the dark, and feel the soft weight of your own body, and hear the quiet sound of your own breath, and know that you are safe. So rest in that knowledge. Let the signals slow. Let the senses fade. Let the muscles loosen. Let the mind wander and then settle. The body is a community, a vast and layered community, and the nervous system is its messenger, its coordinator, its quiet keeper. And right now, the messenger is whispering that all is well. The layers are in place. The systems are in balance. The night is long, and you can sleep. The body is a whole, and yet it is always changing. Every moment, something is being built. Something is being broken down. Something is being repaired. This constant change is life. It is not a fixed structure, but a flowing process, like water moving through a riverbed, always the same shape, always different water. The body is the riverbed. The cells are the water, and the river never stops. We have spent a long time moving through the layers of the body, from the smallest rooms of the cells to the great cooperating systems. We have looked at the tissues, the fabrics of the body, and seen how they weave together to make organs. We have looked at the organs, the working structures, and seen how they work together to make systems. We have looked at the systems, the great networks, and seen how they carry the blood, move the air, direct the signals, and keep the balance. And now, at the end of all that wandering, we can simply rest in the whole. But before we rest completely, let us gather the pieces together one more time, softly, so that the shape of the whole is clear. The body is made of cells. Cells are tiny living units, each one wrapped in a membrane, each one carrying a set of instructions in its nucleus, each one doing the quiet work of life. There are trillions of them, and they come in many shapes and sizes. Muscle cells are long and thin, built to shorten. Nerve cells are long and branched, built to signal. Skin cells are flat and tough, built to cover. Red blood cells are disc-shaped, built to carry. Each shape fits the job, and each job fits the whole. When many cells of the same kind gather together, they form a tissue. Epithelial tissue covers and lines. It is the surface of the body, the lining of the tubes, the barrier between inside and outside. It is tightly packed, constantly renewed, and always on duty. Connective tissue supports and connects. It is the loose packing under the skin, the tough cords of tendons, the smooth caps of cartilage, the hard frame of bone, the flowing liquid of blood. It is the material that fills the spaces and holds the shape. Muscle tissue contracts and moves. It is the engine of the body, generating the force that moves bones, squeezes tubes, and pumps blood. Nervous tissue signals and coordinates. It is the network of wires and chemical messages that lets the body know itself and respond to the world. When tissues of different kinds come together, they form an organ. The skin is an organ, a covering of epithelial tissue over a bed of connective tissue, with glands and nerves and vessels. The heart is an organ, a muscular pump lined with epithelium and wrapped in connective tissue, guided by its own electrical rhythm. The lungs are organs, soft and spongy, built of tiny air sacs and thin capillaries, moved by the diaphragm and the ribs. The stomach is an organ, a muscular sac lined with epithelium and filled with acids and enzymes. The brain is an organ, the most complex of all, made of billions of neurons and trillions of connections, the seat of thought and feeling and awareness. When organs work together, they form a system. The circulatory system carries the blood. The respiratory system brings in the air. The digestive system processes the food. The urinary system filters the waste. The immune system defends the body. The endocrine system sends chemical messages. The skeletal system provides the frame. The muscular system moves the frame. The nervous system coordinates everything. Each system is a collaboration, a network of organs working toward a common goal. And all the systems together make the organism, the living whole, the person lying here in the dark. This is the architecture of the body. It is simple and it is deep. It is a hierarchy, but not a rigid one. The layers flow into one another. The cells are not separate from the tissues. The tissues are not separate from the organs. The organs are not separate from the systems. They are all one thing, seen at different levels of focus. When you look closely, you see cells. When you step back, you see tissues. When you step back further, you see organs and systems and the whole. It is like looking at a painting from different distances. Up close, you see the individual brush strokes. From a few steps away, you see the shapes and colors. From across the room, you see the whole image. The body is like that. The brush strokes are the cells. The shapes are the tissues and organs. The image is you. And the image is not static, it is alive. Every cell is active. Every tissue is renewing. Every organ is working. Every system is adjusting. The body is a process, not a thing. It is a flow of energy and matter, a constant exchange with the outside world. Air comes in, oxygen is taken, carbon dioxide goes out. Food comes in, nutrients are absorbed, waste goes out. Water comes in, the body is bathed and cleaned, water goes out. The body is not a closed box. It is an open system, always taking in and giving out, always balancing. This balance is called homeostasis. Homeostasis means keeping the internal environment stable, even when the outside world changes. The body has a preferred temperature, a preferred level of water, a preferred level of salts and sugars and oxygen. When anything drifts too far from the preferred level, the body works to bring it back. If the body gets too hot, it sweats and widens the blood vessels near the skin. If it gets too cold, it shivers and narrows those vessels. If the blood sugar gets too high, the pancreas releases insulin, which tells the cells to take up the sugar. If it gets too low, the pancreas releases a different hormone, which tells the liver to release stored sugar. If the blood pressure gets too high, the nervous system slows the heart. If it gets too low, the nervous system speeds the heart. These adjustments happen constantly, automatically, without any effort from you. The body is a self-regulating system, a living balance, always tending toward the middle. And sleep is part of this balance. Sleep is not just the absence of wakefulness. It is an active state, a time when the body does specific work. During sleep, the body repairs damaged tissues. It builds new cells. It strengthens the connections in the brain. It releases hormones that help growth and healing. It consolidates memories. It clears away the waste products that build up during the day. The brain has its own cleaning system, which becomes more active during sleep, washing away the debris of a day's thinking. This is one reason sleep feels so necessary. It is not just rest, it is restoration. It is the body's nightly maintenance, its quiet rebuilding, its slow return to balance. Right now, as you lie here, that maintenance is beginning. The body is shifting into its restful state. The parasympathetic nervous system is taking charge. The heart is slowing. The breath is deepening. The muscles are loosening. The blood is flowing to the digestive organs, to the skin, to the places of repair. The brain is changing its rhythm, moving from the fast waves of wakefulness to the slower waves of drowsiness, and eventually to the deep, slow waves of sleep. All of this is happening on its own. You do not need to make it happen, you only need to let it. Let yourself be heavy. Let the weight of your body press down into the bed. Let the muscles of your face go soft. Let the muscles of your jaw unclench. Let the shoulders drop. Let the hands open. Let the legs fall apart. There is nothing to hold up, nothing to brace against, nothing to do. The body knows how to sleep. It has been doing it since the beginning. It knows the sequence. the slow unwinding, the gradual fade. You can trust it. The breath is a good place to rest your attention, if you want to rest your attention somewhere. Not controlling it, just noticing it. The air comes in, cool and easy. The air goes out, warm and slow. The chest rises and falls. The belly rises and falls. Each breath is a small tide, a small wave, washing through the body. The oxygen enters the blood. The carbon dioxide leaves. The cells are fed. The waste is carried away. The breath is the most immediate sign of the body's balance, the most tangible rhythm of the living whole. You can follow it for a while and then let it go. The heart is another rhythm. It beats beneath the breastbone, steady and soft. It has been beating since before you were born, and it will beat until the very end. It does not ask for your help. It does not need your attention. It simply continues, beat after beat, pushing the blood through the body, bringing oxygen to the cells, carrying warmth to the skin. You can feel it, if you are very still, a soft pulse in the chest, in the neck, in the wrists. It is the rhythm of life, quiet and constant. Let it slow, let it settle. It will keep its own time. The brain is also settling. The thoughts that flitted through the day are losing their urgency. They drift past, one after another, without demanding attention. Some are fragments of conversation. Some are images of places. Some are small worries, small plans, small regrets. They rise and fall, like leaves on water. You do not need to hold on to any of them. You do not need to push them away. You can simply let them be and let them go. The brain is sorting through them, keeping what matters, releasing what does not. It is doing its nightly work, and that work is easier when you do not interfere. The senses are also quieting. The eyes are closed, the room is dark, the ears are softening, letting the sounds of the night fade into the background. The skin is warm, registering only the soft pressure of the bed. The nose is still, the tongue at rest. The world outside is receding, and the world inside is becoming more present. This is the natural drift towards sleep, the gradual withdrawal from the outer to the inner. It is not something to force, it is something to allow. And as the outer world fades, the inner world begins to speak. The body's quiet rhythms become more noticeable. The breath, the heartbeat, the soft hum of the blood. The thoughts become less linear, more dreamlike. Images float up, unbidden. Scenes form and dissolve. The boundary between waking and sleeping becomes thin, and then thinner, and then it is gone. You may not remember this in the morning. That is all right. The words are not meant to be remembered. They are meant to be a soft container, a gentle framework, a way to let the mind settle. They are like the rails that guide a train through the night. The train moves along the rails, but the passengers do not need to know the route. They can simply rest and let the journey happen. The words will carry you, and then they will fade, and the sleep will carry you the rest of the way. If you are still awake, that is all right too. Sleep cannot be forced. It comes when the body is ready, when the balance is right, when the quiet is deep enough. You can simply continue to rest, with the body heavy and the breath slow, and let the time pass. Even if you do not sleep, the rest is still valuable. The body is still repairing. The brain is still sorting. The balance is still tending toward the middle. Rest is enough. Rest is always enough. And if you drift off and then drift back and find the voice still speaking, that is all right as well. You can pick up wherever you are without needing to know what came before. The subject is the same. The rhythm is the same. The body is the same. You can settle back into it and let the words carry you again. There is no test. There is no need to keep track. The words are just a soft sound in the dark, a companion to the night. We have come to the end of the long walk through the body. We began with a single cell, a tiny room with soft walls and a library of instructions. We moved up through the tissues, the fabrics of the body, each with its own texture and task. We moved up through the organs, the working structures, each with its own shape and purpose. We moved up through the systems, the great cooperating networks, each with its own rhythm and role. And we arrived at the whole, the living body, the flowing process, the quiet balance. And now, at the very end, we can simply rest in that whole. The body is here, doing its work. The cells are here, living their small lives. The tissues are here, holding their shapes. The organs are here, keeping their rhythms. The systems are here, maintaining the balance. It is all one thing, one vast and gentle community, and you are part of it. You are the whole of it, and the whole of it is you. So let the last words be soft. There is nothing more to learn tonight. There is nothing more to do. The body is complete, and the body is resting. The cells are quiet. The tissues are warm. The organs are slow. The systems are balanced. The breath comes and goes. The heart beats and beats. The brain drifts and settles. The night is long, and the body is safe, and the rest is here. Let it come. Let it take you. Let the layers of the body relax, from the smallest cell to the whole warm shape under the covers. Let the flow of the blood slow. Let the tide of the breath ease. Let the spark of the nerves soften. Let the quiet of the night rise up and cover everything, like a soft blanket over the whole body. And if you are still listening, still awake, still drifting on the edge of sleep, then just rest here, in the space between the words, in the pause between one breath and the next. There is nowhere else to be. There is nothing else to do. The body is home. The night is kind, and sleep, when it comes, will be gentle. It always is. It always has been. It is the body's oldest friend, the quiet return to balance, the nightly renewal. The cells know it. The tissues know it. The organs know it. The systems know it. The whole body knows it, and the whole body is ready. So let the mind go. Let the thoughts drift. Let the words fade into the background, like the sound of rain on a roof, like the rustle of leaves in the dark. They have done their work. They have walked through the body, from cell to system, and now they can fall away. What remains is only rest, the soft weight of the body, the slow rhythm of the breath, the steady beat of the heart, the quiet hum of the blood, the gentle current of the nerves, the warm glow of the skin, the deep peace of the whole. Sleep is near now. It is always near. It has been waiting all along, just behind the words, just behind the breath, just behind the quiet. Let it come forward. Let it wrap around you. Let it carry you down, gently, gently, into the still water of the night. And there, in the stillness, the body continues. The cells continue. The tissues continue. The organs continue. The systems continue. The whole continues. It is a quiet, ceaseless, beautiful thing, this living body, and it does not need your help. It only needs your rest. So rest. Let the body do what it knows how to do. Let the cells divide and repair. Let the tissues hold and renew. Let the organs beat and breathe and filter and digest. Let the systems coordinate and balance. Let the whole body settle into sleep, layer by layer, until every part is still and soft and warm. And if there is one last thought to hold, let it be this. The body is a community, and you are its home. The body is a process, and you are its stillness. The body is a whole, and you are its rest. The layers are all in place. The systems are all in balance. The night is all around, and you can sleep.